Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Beatrix Potter's Herbal Tisane blend from Simpson and Vale. It's their literary teas. Let's see, literary tea collection. It's got a bunny in the front. It has all kinds of like herbal mixes, things like chamomile, which I don't like by itself usually, so it's good to have it in a blend. And it's a nice, peaceful, tasty tea. I used the bunny in the front tea as a little connection between one of the books that I read this month so far, and you'll see that in a minute. But I thought I would just do a mid-month wrap-up because by the time I'm filming this slightly earlier, but by the time I put it out, it'll probably be about the middle of the month. February goes really fast, and I have 3 books that I want to return to the library because I'm really trying to get my books back to the library, and I'm trying to get on top of my borrowed books, but it's like Sisyphean. Is that the word? Sisyphus, the one who had to roll a big boulder up a hill and it just kept rolling back down again, but he had to keep doing it. So this is how I feel with my library books. If I return these 3, I have 2 books already waiting for me at the library to be picked up and 2 in transit. So am I really catching up? I don't know, but at least I can take these back, and that's good. And then, but the first book I'm going to show you is a book that is in my own collection. So I'll just show you that first. And I've shown this to you before, probably in my TBR, 2 months in a row, and also last year because I read Quicksand last year and I liked it. But then I heard about Passing. I'd already heard about Passing, but I heard a lot about Passing in recent months, and I said, man, I really got to read this. So that's Nella Larson. It's a collection of her literary works. I haven't read the stories. I'm not much of a short story person, but I'm not against it either. And because I like her writing, I would maybe just read it anyway. But for now, I read Passing, which is a novella. It's not long, but it still packs a punch. Like, it is. I read it in one day, but what a day! I finished at night, and I was just like, wow. And it's hard to explain without giving away spoilers, but basically it's about 2 women who grew up together, and years later they run into each other. Irene is living now in New York, and she's kind of living what she considers a kind of normal life. She's trying to keep life kind of status quo. There are difficulties in life that she just tries not to face. But otherwise she seems pretty successful. She's doing okay, but when she goes away, when she's visiting her hometown, she runs into a friend that she hasn't seen in years, who is seems to be doing okay too, but living quite a different life because she is doing what they call passing. Roll credits. Wherein if you came from a background probably where you were maybe part black, part white, but you could pass. You could appear to be white, or maybe mistaken for, I don't know, Italian or something. You might choose to do so, and this is something that I suppose could still happen today, but I think it was even more prevalent back when this came out. It was taking place in 1927, but I think it came out in 1929. Not much of a time difference, but the deal was, because black people still were very prejudiced against. Still now, but now there is much more of an awareness that is a problem. That's really not right. And back then, people were still kind of free about expressing things that they should not have expressed. So I think some people thought maybe they could have a better life if they didn't, if they passed as white. And to a point you might, but at what cost? You know what I mean? Because you kind of have to say goodbye to your friends and family because and this became more noticeable in the case of Claire, because she not only did what you call passing, she never told her husband that she was doing so, that she had any background other than white. And her husband is racist. He does not like black people at all. So that's a really dangerous road to take. And so she runs into Irene when Irene is doing what is the closest that she does to passing, which is basically she just found herself having a glass of iced tea on a hotel rooftop, um, and already thinking to herself, what would they think about me if they knew that I was, black? And so she's basically passing at that exact moment. So when she runs into Claire, they're kind of both doing so, but Irene doesn't do so in her life, but sometimes she does in little moments. So that's kind of something that one might want to analyze. Like, is it ever? I mean, well, it's not for anyone to judge whether one should do that or not. But was it ever something that one could just turn off and on? It's such a kind of societal thing, something that I didn't think of growing up. Even growing up in my high school and college, we read a lot of books by like African American literature, and it didn't really come up that much that I know of. So it is something that I've never had to deal with. There's a difference, passing in terms of personality and hiding parts of yourself, but that's not the same. It is kind of a whole lifestyle change, really. I don't know how to explain it, but the point is that these two kind of find themselves thrown back into each other's life. One of them seems to be doing the throwing of herself into the other's life, and the other one is seeming to not always like this, and it's a very tense situation. Their relationship is one that one could spend hours analyzing too. I'm not an analytical person when it comes to these things, but I really do wish I had someone to talk to that has read this book, because there's so much I wish I could discuss. But then things start to take more and more of a turn where there's just kind of a bad feeling that Irene has toward her friend Claire, and it is not really expressed, but things start to come to a head, and then something happens that is really threatens to upend both of their lives, really. So yeah, the ending is something else, and I really wish I could talk to somebody about it, but it was so good. If you like to read books, there was plot, but like, if you really are a character-based person, this would be the book for you. And I really wish Nell Larson had written more, because Quicksand was amazing, Passing was amazing, her prose, her descriptions are excellent. I don't know what happened that she didn't write more. I think I heard something that she was accused of plagiarism at some point. I'm like, really, but not for these books. But it's a shame. I wouldn't mind reading more about her life as well, because I think some of what happens in these books are a little bit of a not autobiographical, but semi knowledgeable, from experience. So anyway. Yes, very much recommend that book. Okay, so the next book that, this is not in order of how I read it, but these are the library books that I read. This is a book that, like I've mentioned before, I really miss my local bookshop. Not in terms of, it is technically open for ordering books and curbside still, but because of safety reasons, it's still not open for browsing. And I can't really complain, because I've been able to go into the city and browse in bookshops. So I'm spoiled, but it would still be nice to be able to go back. But a couple of times I have passed by and done the thing where I gaze into the window longingly and hope that the people on the other end, if they're there in the shop at all, aren't like creeped out by me. But twice I've taken books out that I've seen in the window, because I was not secure enough to know if I would enjoy them, so I thought, let me take them out of the library. First was Duchess of Goldblatt. Anyway, which I read in November. And then this one I put on hold, and it took a while to show up. It's a very popular book. It's a bestseller. So this is Wow, No Thank You by Samantha Irby. It's a book of essays. I've been trying to read more essays. And it's actually, I think, her third book. So I'm out of order, but I think it covers a lot anyway. It has a similar feeling in some ways to like Jenny Lawson, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, Furiously Happy kind of stories. But different, of course, not exactly. So, Samantha Irby, someone is yelling outside my window. They're saying Raul. I'm having Phantom of the Opera thoughts right now. Except that was more Raul. But anyway, I just went totally off the tangent. She talks about her life now living in Michigan, and a different kind of society than she's used to growing up with. Different, much more suburban. She grew up in a city, mostly. She grew up in I guess still slightly out of Chicago, but still that area. And it's just a very different life. So she writes about that. She writes a little bit also about her actual writing life and how it's progressed. So that's kind of interesting, and how her books became books in the first place from a blog. She's a blogger, so from blogger to published book writer. I mean, that's a bit of a deal. So she talks also. What was the draw for me was, first of all, talking a lot about anxiety issues, which I relate to, but also she has Crohn's disease, among other things, but that's one of the things she talks about the most, which is part of the inflammatory bowel disease thing, which, oh, my cats are licking each other. I wish you could see this on camera. They don't usually do that. It was very cute. Why do these things always have to happen off camera? Now they look like they're going to slap each other. But Freddie is distracted by the people talking outside. Okay, back to the book. And even though I don't think I have Crohn's disease, I think I would know by now. But no, because what I got diagnosed with was something a little bit different, but a very similar kind of situation in terms of, what you eat really affects you. It's very excitable by anxiety, by what you eat, by circumstances, any kind of changes. And just sometimes when you plan to go out and do something, you have to really make plans because situations may arise, and so you have to be prepared. And she has it worse than I do, but I was glad to read someone else's point of view on this, really. And other things too. She talks a lot about working at a veterinary office earlier, not now, but still not too long ago. And I never worked in a veterinary office, but I'm really into animals and kind of wanted to for a while, but my sister did, and after she did, I kind of didn't want to. But so she talked about that. She has cats. She talks about even her old mixtape list, and she's a few years younger than I am, but basically the same time period. So a lot of the music that she was into is things that I'm very familiar with, and that was kind of a fun look back. And she talks a lot about her life, some of which I thought was fun and funny, and it's meant to be funny most of the time. A lot of it is very TMI, too much information. When I say that, it's meant to be. But for me, there are certain things about one's romantic encounters that I don't need to know about. Also, a lot of language, and I've said this before. If a book has some cursing in it or whatever, I'm not going to just stop reading it. But it's a lot. It's a lot. I think if you are at all sensitive to language, it might not be the book for you. But if it sounds good otherwise, I do very much recommend it. And it was fun. I don't want to say it's fun. She hasn't had a great, perfect life. Her upbringing was rough. But she does have a turn of phrase. So yeah, I would say if that sounds like your kind of book, then definitely go for it. I guess I'm saying go for it. It sounds so go for it, but So the next two books, this next one was a very quick read. But it was another collection based on an online account, which seems to be a big thing lately for me. Between Duchess Goldblatt, between Wow No Thank You, and now this actually is a slightly older book, but Weird Things Customers Say in Bookstores by Jen Campbell. I don't know if you could see behind me the bookshop book. That's also Jen Campbell. And if you're watching this channel, you've probably been on BookTube for a while. Probably. And so you probably already know that Jen Campbell has her own channel, and very bookish and very good, and definitely worth a look. But this book, she used to work in bookshops before, and she's also written other things besides this, besides that. which I enjoyed that book so much. But this is a compilation mostly of things that she got from Twitter, but also has been contributed from other bookshops. In fact, one bookshop that I had been to, it's not far from me, and it's just so many different weird things that customers say in bookstores. Sometimes some of the things that people ask for are just ridiculous. But look at this one. A couple enter and start to browse new hardcover fiction titles. The man picks up Philip Roth's The Plot Against America. Man, I've been looking for this. Woman, what's that, honey? Man, it's this book about what would happen if Charles Lindbergh had become president instead of FDR. Woman, oh, who won that election again? I can't remember. Man, Roosevelt. Woman, really? So it's just like, people, some things are just silly things that people say without thinking, and some people, let's see, customer, do you have Campbell's Soup for the Soul? Do you have Agatha Christie's Death in Denial? And I picked this up, and the library I go to is right near the subway station, so I took the subway right home, and I was waiting for the subway for a little bit, and I remember actually laughing as I was reading this, because some of the things that people say are just so silly, and there are illustrations throughout that illustrate what people ask and say. So I thought that was pretty funny. Let's see. Oh yeah, Fiddler on a Hot Tin Roof, which made me laugh because I've gotten those two confused. I've seen Fiddler on the Roof. I've not seen Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, but I've literally got those two mixed up. So I'm like, I'm not alone. I'm a weird person, I guess. And this one, do you have any books by Jane Eyre? Now that you could see happening. Oh, someone's looking for Raul again. But anyway, yes, if you can get a hold of this book, it is a good laugh. And those of us who are bookish people, which I think are most of us, I think would like that. Speaking of bookish, I finished The Mystery of Mrs. Christie. It's not really a mystery, so I'm not putting the hat on. I mean, it is, but it isn't, because everything that happened in this book, this isn't just a new story. It's based on something that really happened. The mystery really is just the current speculation of why, more of why than anything. Agatha Christie went missing in 1926 for I think 11 days. Sorry, my nose is really itchy today. Her car was found by a lake, and it looked like she might have been in an accident, so people didn't know if she had fallen into the lake and drowned, or if she had got hurt and wandered off somewhere and was dying somewhere, or what happened to her. No one knew. And as people were investigating this, blame started being, or at least side eye started being given to her husband Archie, because it started to become known that he had a woman that he was planning to divorce her for and marry. So it was like, well, that's interesting. She goes missing conveniently when you're trying to get out of your marriage. Sounds like an Agatha Christie novel, you know what I mean? So, and yes, it does sound like an Agatha Christie novel, so there you go. This is a 2-point of view situation. Basically, it intersperses from Agatha Christie's point of view from when she first meets Archibald Christie, and they get married, and their married life, and the time during the war, World War One. I seem to come across a lot of World War One intervals in my reading recently, which I have no problem with. And their marital difficulties and communication issues. Archie Christie was not put in a good light in this book at all. I don't know him in real life, so I can't say, but however, then it also intersperses between her first person point of view and then Archie's point of view, but third person, during the time when she's missing. And obviously he's worried, and he's got to deal with his daughter and the staff and everybody investigating, the Chief Constable Kendall, I think his name is, asking questions, and his little, difficulty. And plus, he knows something that everybody else doesn't know, but he's trying to keep a secret. And so that kind of factors into his own actions and inactions. So it's pretty cool. then there's like a bit of a reveal at the ending by Agatha Christie, which felt a little bit Poirot. If you've read Poirot mysteries, you know how he likes to like get everybody together and tell the story about what happened. It's a little bit like that, which in a way I liked, and in a way I was kind of like, it kind of felt slightly like a thud to me, but it was good. It was a good story. I really want to read more about Agatha Christie. There's a couple books I know about her that I want to read. One of which I had started but didn't continue with. Who knows if I'll go back to it again. I have her autobiography. I might as well try that. But I mean, I do know about her life. I played her in a play once, sort of. That's another story for another time. I find it interesting. I'm going to go off on a tangent now, but I always talk about Doctor Who because it was what got me into Doctor Who. I loved Doctor Who before that, is in terms of, yeah, this was interesting, but it wasn't until I saw the episode where Agatha Christie was on that I absolutely just loved it, even though that's not even the best episode. I loved it anyway, but it covered this time period, but with aliens. I always thought it was funny that Agatha Christie's second husband was an archaeologist, and after that episode of Doctor Who, the doctor met his wife, who was an archaeologist. I know it has no connection, but I just love these kind of things in life. But well written, good book, good story, quick read. I want to read the rest of her books. I'll get the pictures. Look at these pictures. But I kind of recommend you read her books up to 1926, especially The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, before you read this. Because there are actual spoilers. There are spoilers! Like total whodunit, and that would be a shame if you didn't know it already. Because I only knew a lot of these because I had already seen the David Suchet version, so I was already spoiled and I knew that. But if you haven't read it and you don't know what happened, man, do that first. Read those books first. One of the things I liked also was that early in the book, she's talking about some mystery novels that she likes. She talked about how much she loves Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which is great because he helped in his own weird way to investigate her disappearance too, which I love. Although I don't really love his method. It was kind of silly. But she mentioned some books that she was reading. One, she mentions The Leavenworth Case by Anna Catherine Green that was written a full 10 years before Sir Arthur Conan Doyle published his first Sherlock Holmes. And it's a mystery. Oh, so now I gotta get a hold of this. Let me know if you've ever read this book, please. And if I don't get a hold of it anytime soon, I could probably get it in time for October, right? Okay, that was corny, right? Anyway, and then she also mentions she just finished the new book by Gaston Leroux, The Mystery of the Yellow Room, which I've never read, never heard of, but you know what else he wrote? The Phantom of the Opera. So I just thought that was a fun little connection to my little sillinesses. Anyway, so those are the 4 books that I've read so far. I am almost done with a couple other books, or well into a couple other books, I should say. And so we'll have more to say. Let me know what you've been reading so far. Have you been having a good time reading? Hope you have. Until then, we will talk more about books. This is Catherine. I'm taking tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and book-filled day.